You are absolutely right. Like Viggo Mortensen did an incredible job. Movie Aragorn is incredible, but movie Aragorn is not what's on the page. And honestly, it's fine that Aragorn isn't the same from book to film because the medium is the message. Aragorn was being crafted as a three movie like a three movie protagonist, and that's different from what he was doing in the book. Book Aragorn, if I remember correctly, is a lot more sure of himself. He gets the reformed Narsil, Anduril. I'm American. I'm sorry, my accent for Elven words and Middle Earth words is terrible. But he gets his sword after the Council of Elrond and not before the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. So it gives him a lot more time to really settle into his identity as like the main guy, as like the Isildur's heir and all of that. Whereas movie Aragorn is kind of running away from his destiny a little bit. Like he grew up like in Rivendell and he grew up like out in the wilderness. Like that's what he's comfortable with. The idea of like just giving up his freedom and giving up who he is in order to kind of ascend to the king, ascend to being king. That's an adjustment. That being said, though, he's not even the only character who is different from book to film. Because on my life, what was done to Faramir was insane. It was like for the last third of the Two Towers, it was like he was infected by a pod person. So in the movies, there's this whole thing where Faramir is like, the ring is going to go to Gondor, we're going to go to Osgiliath, and we're going to deal with the bullshit happening with Osgiliath, and then we're going to head off to Minas Tirith, and we're going to pass off the ring to my dad. That way he'll love me again. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that in the book. And it's really weird because it's not even like the temptation for him to do that was dealt with in any way in The Return of the King. Like in The Return of the King, like he is his normal Faramir self. But the Two Towers, I guess they just needed to extend like the Frodo Sam storyline a little bit more just to make sure the movie lined up chronologically with everything else, because even like the Two Towers and the Return of the King, it's not split up in the same way as the movies are. But I guess like because of like timeline issues, they needed to extend that plot line, so they gave Faramir like this icky like moment where it looks like he's gonna succumb to the ring, but like in reality he looks at Frodo and Sam and he looks at the ring and he's just like, not if I found it on the highway. It didn't matter what it didn't matter what he was going to get from it. It didn't matter if it was going to save Gondor. It didn't matter if it was going to make his father love him. He was just like, this thing is evil. I want nothing to do with it. I don't care what happens. Merry and Pippin are also vastly different too, which actually makes me sad because these two are like some of my favorite book characters. The movies kind of make them dumb. They're not like Merry and Pippin aren't stupid in the movies, but they're not the absolute mad lad geniuses that they were in the books. For one, the way that Frodo makes it to Bree and to the Prancing Pony is very different in the movies versus the books, where they kind of bump into Merry and Pippin and they're just kind of along for the ride. But in the books, it is a years-long conspiracy. Like, Frodo is doing this thing where, like, he's moving to a different neighborhood so that the people of Hobbiton don't notice that he's missing because, like, it's going to be a lot of drama and he doesn't want to deal with it. So he has his cousins, Merry and Pippin, help him move to around where Merry lives, because both Merry and Pippin are heirs to not thrones, but like government seats in the Shire. And the whole time that they're helping him do this, they are actively plotting to make sure that they can get Frodo and the ring out safely. And they're also plotting to make sure that the Shire doesn't realize that he's gone. And that leads us to, the scouring of the Shire and raising the alarm when the Nazgul come, like, awake, fear, fire, foes, awake, like all that stuff, which is another conversation for another day, because there's a fifth Hobbit that was written out of the movies, Fatty Bulger. And it just goes to show how fucking smart these two were, because Merry he's the strategist. Like, he's the guy who'll like look at the maps and he'll know how to get around, and he is the smartest, I think, of all four of them. Whereas Pippin, like, he's not necessarily as book smart as Merry is, but he thinks on his feet. Even that scene where, like, he knocks the skeleton into the well in Moria, that's not actually what happens in the book. The reason why the Balrog wakes up is because Pippin is like, we're lost in Moria. We need to figure out how deep we're in and how long it's going to take us to get out. So he takes a rock and he drops it into the well so he can hear the splash. So he's like, okay, where's the bottom? And it just goes to show how smart he is. Which is why, like, it really pains me when people are like, oh no, Merry and Pippin are stupid. Because they're not. They're very smart. They have different intelligences. And their intelligences play off very well with Frodo's and with Sam's. Weirdly, one of the most book accurate characters, low key, is Legolas, because Legolas in the movies, he doesn't say much, and you kind of see him in the back just like making faces. And it could be attributed to Orlando Bloom like being a little shit like behind the like in front of the camera, but it's also a lot of it is just Legolas is a little shit in the books. Like, Legolas is one of the youngest elves to have ever been born on, like, in Middle-earth. He might actually be the youngest elf. And he is constantly trolling. He is constantly just doing incredibly chaotic shit. For example, there is a scene where they are like the three of them are running, like the three hunters, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, they're running. And in the movies, it's kind of like this bang, bang, like they're running and they're running and they're running, and then the Rohirrim show up. In the books, it's a little bit different. Like, they're actually taking a little bit of the time to stop and like kind of get their bearings. And Aragorn is listening to the ground the way he does in the movie, but in the book, like they describe it a little bit more. Like his face is like on the ground, his ear to the boulder, trying to figure out where the orcs are, and then he sees and then like he hears the Rohirrim hoofbeats. So he's just like, I can kind of hear like a lot of them. And then Legolas goes, yeah, there's 104 of them. I see their leader. He's really blonde and really tall. And it's literally one of the funniest things, because it's just like, Legolas, you let Aragorn just put his face on the ground and listen really intently when you could have just looked. And when they're stuck on the snowy mountain in Fellowship, there's this moment where everybody is kind of like roughing it in the snow, and Legolas is kind of like, he's kind of like dancing on top, like in the movies. But they're trying to figure out like where the sun is, just so they can figure out like where they are in relation to like the rest of the world. Like, they're getting their bearings. And Legolas is like, goodbye, I go to find the sun. Like, this man is a chaos agent. He is a chaos agent and a little shit, and we love him. Those are just some of the character changes, and not character changes. I just really wanted to wax poetic about how much I love Legolas's portrayal in The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings movies, the Hobbit movies, Legolas drops the ball a little bit, but that's not Orlando Bloom's fault. But like, Aragorn's different, and Faramir's different, and that stuff was all like really, really protested in the fandom in the day. Like the Tolkien fandom has a real purism streak. But now that it's 2024 and we all want to shit on Morfydd Clark, it's like, oh no, the movies were perfectly book accurate. They didn't divert even a little bit. Like, be so fucking for real, y'all.